Welcome to Historian Diary. Today I'm going to tell you about desire. Raw, aching physical desire. The kind that makes your heart race, your skin burn, your tongue fail. And I'm going to tell you about a woman who wrote about this desire 2,600 years ago. A woman who looked at another woman and felt her body respond. A woman whose name became synonymous with female same-sex love. But here's the twist. She lived centuries before the word lesbian even existed. This is the story of Sappho of Lesbos. And this is a story about how we try to capture something as fluid and overwhelming as desire in words, in categories, in identities. Close your eyes and imagine the Aegean Sea, around 600 BCE, a small community of women on the island of Lesbos. They're gathered in a courtyard, light filtering through olive trees, music, poetry, and among them a woman named Sappho watching another woman laugh. And in that moment, Sappho feels something that will echo through 2,600 years of history. Her heart pounds, her skin flushes, her vision blurs. She's drowning in desire, and she writes it down. Let's start with the text itself, because what makes Sappho extraordinary isn't just that she desired women, it's that she described that desire with a physical intensity that's almost unbearable to read. Fragment 31, one of her most famous poems, survived because a Roman critic quoted it centuries later. Here's what she wrote, and I want you to really hear this. He seems to me equal to the gods, that man who sits facing you and hears your sweet voice close beside him and your lovely laughter. That, I swear, sets my heart fluttering in my breast. For when I look at you, even for a moment, I can't speak anymore. My tongue breaks. A subtle fire runs under my skin. My eyes see nothing. My ears roar. Sweat pours down me. Trembling seizes me all over. I'm paler than grass. I seem to myself to be almost dead. Where are you watching this from? What country are you in? Let me know in the comments. Read that again. My tongue breaks. Fire runs under my skin. I'm paler than grass. This isn't metaphor. This is a woman describing what happens to her body when she looks at another woman. Her heart races. She can't breathe. She sweats. She shakes. This is desire so intense it's almost like dying. And she's writing this in ancient Greece, where women weren't supposed to have voices at all, let alone voices that spoke about wanting other women's bodies. But Sappho did, and that's why we're still talking about her 2,600 years later. Now here's where it gets complicated. Was Sappho a lesbian? The question seems simple. A woman who desired women. Of course she was a lesbian, right? But here's the problem. The concept of being a lesbian as an identity didn't exist in ancient Greece. The word lesbian, meaning a woman who loves women, only became common in the 19th century. It comes from Lesbos, Sappho's island, but Sappho herself never used that word. She never defined herself that way. Because in her world, people weren't categorized by who they desired. Sexuality in ancient Greece wasn't about orientation. It was about roles, about power dynamics, about who penetrated whom. The question wasn't, are you attracted to men or women? The question was, are you active or passive? Are you dominant or submissive? Gender of your partner mattered less than your role in the act. This is what scholars like Kenneth Dover documented in his groundbreaking work on Greek sexuality. The ancient Greeks literally didn't think about desire the way we do. So when Sappho writes about a woman's voice making her heart flutter, when she describes fire running under her skin, when she talks about nearly dying from looking at a beautiful woman, she's not thinking I'm a lesbian. She's thinking I'm in love. I'm overwhelmed by Eros. Eros, that divine force that the Greeks saw as coming from the gods, that could strike anyone at any time, regardless of gender. Eros wasn't about identity. It was about experience. It was about being consumed. But let's be clear, even if Sappho didn't have our modern language for it, what she's describing is absolutely undeniably same-sex desire. She's not writing about platonic friendship. She's writing about bodies, about physical responses, about wanting. Her fragments are filled with images of women, their laughter, their voices, their hair, their clothes. She describes watching a woman walk and being transfixed. She writes about lying awake at night, thinking about a woman who isn't there. She invokes Aphrodite, goddess of sexual love, to help her win a woman's affection. This isn't subtle. This is erotic poetry. Are you still watching? What time is it where you are? Let me know in the comments. Let's talk about the context. Sappho lived on Lesbos around 630–570 BCE. She was part of what scholars call a Thiasos, a community of women dedicated to Aphrodite. These groups were common in ancient Greece. Young women would gather, learn poetry and music, perform rituals and prepare for marriage. And in these all-female spaces, something happened. Emotional bonds formed. Physical intimacy developed. Desire awakened. Greek society didn't really police what women did with each other the way it policed male homosexuality. Male-male relationships were highly regulated, especially the pederastic relationships between older men and adolescent boys. Those had rules, protocols, social consequences. But women were largely invisible in public life. What happened in women's spaces stayed in women's spaces. So Sappho and her companions had a kind of freedom, a space where they could express desire for each other without immediate social consequences. And Sappho wrote about it. She wrote about watching a bride leave for her wedding and feeling devastated. She wrote about missing a woman who had gone away. She wrote about jealousy, about longing, about the physical ache of desire. Fragment 16, one of the longer surviving pieces, opens with Sappho saying, "Some people say an army of horsemen is the most beautiful thing on earth. Others say infantry. Others say ships. But I say it's whatever you love." And then she talks about Helen of Troy, how Helen abandoned everything for love, how desire can make you betray your entire world. This is a woman who understood that desire doesn't follow rules, that it doesn't care about what's appropriate or safe or sensible, that it just is. But here's what we've lost. Of the 9 books of poetry Sappho wrote in her lifetime, only 1 complete poem survives. 1. Everything else is fragments, pieces quoted by other ancient authors, scraps of papyrus found in Egyptian trash heaps, words scratched on pottery. We have maybe 650 lines out of an estimated 10,000. Why? Because Sappho's work was deliberately destroyed. In the early Christian period, around 380 CE, her books were burned. Church authorities ordered them destroyed. Why? Because they were obscene, because they described female desire, because they spoke of love between women. The erasure of Sappho wasn't accidental. It was systematic. It was damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory. What survived by accident. A scrap of papyrus used to wrap a mummy in Egypt. A quotation preserved because a Roman grammarian was discussing meter. A line referenced in a philosophical argument. We're reading Sappho through layers of destruction and chance preservation. And even what survives has been sanitized, mistranslated, explained away. For centuries, scholars insisted Sappho's poems were about pure, chaste love between teacher and students. That the passion was intellectual, not physical. That desire was metaphorical. They couldn't accept that a woman 2,600 years ago was writing explicit erotic poetry about other women. So they rewrote her. They made her safe. Did you know about Sappho before this? Write in the comments. The turning point came in the 20th century, especially with feminist scholarship in the 1970s and beyond. Scholars like Holt Parker, Marilyn Skinner, and Ellen Green started reading Sappho's fragments without the assumption that female desire didn't exist. They looked at the actual Greek words. They examined the contexts. They compared Sappho's language to other Greek erotic poetry. And what they found was undeniable. Sappho was writing about sex, about bodies, about physical desire between women. The language she uses is the same language male Greek poets use to describe heterosexual desire. The metaphors, the imagery, the physical symptoms she describes, all of it points to erotic love. Not metaphorical love, not pedagogical love. Erotic, physical, sexual love. And then in 2014, something extraordinary happened. New fragments of Sappho's poetry were discovered. Papyrus pieces that had been in private collections were finally published and analyzed by Oxford papyrologist Dirk Obbink. 2 new poems emerged, the Brothers poem and the Kypris poem. These aren't as explicitly erotic as Fragment 31, but they give us more of Sappho's voice. They show she wrote about family, about prayer, about daily life. But in the Kypris poem, she's still invoking Aphrodite, still talking about desire, still using language that suggests physical love. Even in these new discoveries, Eros is central to her work. So let's return to the question, was Sappho a lesbian? Here's my answer. In her own time, using her own concepts, no. She didn't identify as a lesbian, because that category didn't exist. She probably didn't think of herself as fundamentally different from women who desired men. She experienced Eros for women, and that was part of the rich tapestry of human desire that the Greeks acknowledged. But in our time, using our concepts, yes, absolutely. A woman who wrote passionate, erotic poetry about other women's bodies is, by any modern definition, expressing same-sex desire. The fact that she didn't have our vocabulary doesn't change the reality of what she felt and what she wrote. Words like lesbian and queer and gay are modern tools for understanding and naming experiences that have always existed. Sappho lived before the labels, but the experience she describes is one that queer women across history have recognized instantly. That heart-stopping moment of seeing someone and feeling your entire body respond. That sense of being consumed by desire. That overwhelming physical sensation of want. And this is why Sappho matters. Not because she was the first woman to love women. She wasn't. Women have always loved women. But she was the first woman whose words about loving women survived. She is the first voice we have, fragmentary as it is, of a woman speaking directly about her desire for other women. Every other female voice from that period that might have existed is gone. Destroyed, lost, silenced. Sappho's voice survived against all odds, and for 2,600 years, women who love women have looked at her fragments and seen themselves, seen their own desire reflected back at them across millennia. The lesbian feminist movement of the 1970s reclaimed Sappho as an icon. They knew the historical context. They knew the anachronism of calling her a lesbian, but they also knew that representation matters, that having a voice from the ancient world, a voice that spoke about female desire for other women, was powerful, was necessary. So they claimed her. They put her on posters and book covers. They quoted her in manifestos. They named bookstores and organizations after her. And yes, some of that was historically imprecise. But it was also emotionally and politically true, because Sappho, whatever she would have called herself, gave voice to something that the world has tried to silence for millennia: women's desire for women. But here's what I find most moving about Sappho's story. She wrote about desire with such raw honesty. She didn't make it pretty or safe or chaste. She wrote about trembling and sweating and losing the ability to speak. She wrote about jealousy and heartbreak and obsession. She wrote about the way desire can make you feel like you're dying. And that vulnerability, that willingness to be completely honest about the overwhelming nature of want, is what makes her poetry timeless. Because desire hasn't changed. The words we use have changed. The categories we create have changed. But the experience of looking at someone and feeling your heart race, your skin burn, your breath catch, that's the same. That's human. That's what Sappho captured. And the fact that she captured it while writing about women loving women in a world that would later try to erase her entirely makes her extremely